Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing my July reading wrap up. This month I read 7 books, which is wild. That is the most books I've read in a month this year, and just in general in my life. But I will say that the first book that I finished this month, I was already pretty much like 75% of the way through. So I don't know if it quite counts, but we're just gonna count it for this video. I read a bunch of different genres. I read fantasy, sci-fi, thriller, literary fiction. Without further ado, let's just get right into it. So the first book that I read in July, technically, like I said, I was like 75% of the way through this at the end of June, but I did finish it in July. And that book is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. I tried to take notes this month about the book so that I could remember, but of course this was one of the ones that I forgot to take notes on. But this is a literary fiction. It's set in the 1940s. I believe. It is about a girl, I want to say she's 18 or 19, who, I can't remember why, but she is sent off to live in New York City with her aunt. I think it's because she didn't want to go to university, and her parents told her, well, then you're going to be shipped off to your aunt, which I think in their minds they thought was a punishment. Her aunt owns a theater. It's not a very popular theater, but they still make money and they put on very low budget shows. So really this is just kind of the character development of that girl growing up basically into her 20s with her aunt and all of these eccentric theater people. I ended up giving this 5 stars, which is crazy because my prediction for this was actually like around 3.5 stars. I think I might be a little bit biased about this book because in high school I was a stage manager for 3.5 years or 4 years. 4 years actually. My whole high school career I was a stage manager for our theater club, so this just was very nostalgic for me. But also I just loved the coming of age aspect of it, and I loved looking into life in New York City in the 1940s. It was so fun. I feel like it's maybe not everyone's cup of tea. Like, I don't think everybody would give this book a 5 stars, but I really don't know. Something about this just hit so hard. I think I was just so attached to the characters, and at the very end I was like, no, this definitely has to be a 5 star because I was getting that 5 star feeling. The next book that I read in July was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This is also a contemporary fiction book. It is about a writer who is kind of like frenemies with this other writer, and she goes to her house one night to hang out with her, and her friend actually ends up choking on a pancake and dying. And then the main character in the book actually steals the manuscript for her frenemy's next book that she was going to publish. I did take notes on this one, and I'll just read you. This is just my train of thought while I was reading this, so I'll just read you what I wrote. I wrote, main character is Delulu in the worst way, because she was so delusional and so, it was just one of those books where like the main character is absolutely terrible. And I think this is actually like the first book where I've experienced the main character also being like the villain and being like this terrible person. But this woman would just like make up like any reasoning in her mind as to why it was okay for her to steal this manuscript, and all of her reasonings were just completely delusional and like not accurate at all. So that's why I wrote that note. I wrote that this made me feel so many things, because it really did. Just going back to before with the main character being so awful. I feel like for most of it I felt like just so upset which doesn't make it sound like a good book. Guys, I just realized that the whole time my AC was blasting. I always do this. It's just really, really hot in my room. We have an old house and it's just really hot. And so I just forget to turn off the AC, and I don't know if I'm gonna have to refilm the beginning of this. I'm just gonna have to check the audio when I go to edit it and see. So anyways, I was talking about Yellowface. I ended up giving this book, what did I give this book? I ended up giving this book a 4 stars. Even though I was angry for most of it, the writing was just so good. It just made me feel so much. I also wrote in my notes that it's a really interesting look into the publishing world, because I really didn't understand beforehand what the publishing world even looks like on the inside. So that was really interesting to see as well. The next book that I read in July was Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is a fantasy book. This book is about a magical carnival that shows up in different places, I think once a year. These 2 sisters end up actually getting an invite to go because it is invite only. They both go, but one of the sisters disappears, and she is actually made part of the game, because for this carnival there is like a game every single time, and she is actually made part of the game, and her sister has to find her. I ended up giving this book a 3.75. I did really like this book. I think there were some aspects about it though that just kind of almost like irked me, I guess. I don't know if I would say irked me, but like kind of like gave me the ick in a way. Like, I don't really know. I think like the way that Stephanie Garber described things was kind of like a little bit too much. I really don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say. It felt kind of like she was trying to make it lyrical, but it was actually kind of cringy. It's just kind of how I felt about it. But it's a 3.75 because the story was so original, and I honestly feel a little bit sad because this story just, I feel like, had a lot of potential, and I just feel like it could have been carried out differently, and it could have been even better than what it was. But with all that to say, I still really enjoyed this, and I thought it was super unique, which is one of my top favorite things about books. If a book is super unique, it usually brings it up more on my rating scale. I'm gonna take a look at the notes that I had for this. Ooh, okay, I had a lot. Again, this is just stream of consciousness while I'm writing this. My note said, the writing felt a little chaotic at some points. I was getting confused easily, even though the writing style seemed pretty easy to follow. I don't know if this was just my brain in the moment or the writing. So again, like the writing just, for some reason it was just, I can't really put my finger on it. But I will say this was her debut, so as a debut, I think this was a really good book. I wrote super unique concept. I said, I almost wonder what Stephanie Garber would have done with this story if it weren't her debut. Maybe it would have been a little more fleshed out. Can't really pinpoint it, but it just didn't hit as much as I'd hoped, but still really great read. Super interested in picking up the rest of the series, which I definitely am. I'll be like interested to see if the books get better throughout the series. Everything was overly described to a point where I was losing interest and getting confused. So yeah, basically all in all, this was a really great concept and it was a really good story. I just think it could have been a little bit more fleshed out, and the writing was a little bit like confusing and overly descriptive. The next book that I read in July is Baby Teeth by Zoya Stage. This is a thriller. It is about a mom and a daughter, well, and a father, so a family. But the main characters are the daughter and the mom. The daughter basically hates her mom to a point of wanting to get rid of her, wanting to dispose of her, if you will. but I'm pretty sure the daughter is only like 7. So basically, creepy daughter, and it's dual POV, so you get the mom's perspective and you also get the daughter's perspective. And when you're in the daughter's perspective, it's literally so creepy. She's so scary. Her thoughts, I'm just like, this book like really makes you think a lot, because like, how did this little girl start thinking these thoughts? It really makes you think about like nature versus nurture. I'm gonna read my notes on this because I know that I took a lot. I said, great look at mom guilt and the pressures put on moms. When you're in the mom's perspective, a lot of the time she is, obviously the daughter is like very like vindictive towards her and like way more scary and misbehaved when she's with the mom. So in the mom's perspective, you get a lot of her thoughts about feeling guilty and like, did she do this to her daughter? Did she make her daughter this way? And also you see like a lot of the pressure of like trying to help her daughter is put on her instead of on the husband and her. She's just kind of left to figure it out. But that's also because the daughter is an actual angel when the dad is home. So the dad doesn't believe the mom. It's crazy. I also wrote, this is so unnerving. This is probably like one of the most unnerving books I've ever read. Like the whole time I was just like, eee, on the edge of my seat. A morbid take on how generational trauma is passed down, which is also very accurate because the mom talks a lot about how her mother wasn't there for her, and the mom has Crohn's disease, and it was kind of like she was left on her own as a teenager to figure this out, and her mom was just kind of not there for her. So she felt kind of like vindictive towards her own mom. So I thought it was interesting to see how like maybe that was why her daughter was the way that she was. Maybe that like trauma was kind of passed down. I also wrote, great look at expectations versus reality in motherhood. Great for Crohn's disease representation. Like there was a lot that I learned about Crohn's disease because of this book. And I also wrote way more than just a thriller, which is so true. Like it was thrilling, it was like creepy, but there was just a lot of thought that went into this book, I think. And I just think there was like a lot more depth to it than just being a thriller. I ended up giving this book a 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book a lot, but the one thing that brought it down was that the ending was very anticlimactic, in my opinion. I thought that something huge was going to happen at the end, but did not turn out that way. But all in all, just because of how deep this book actually was, it was really good, and that's why I gave it a 4 stars. I might actually even consider giving this a 4.25 actually, because of just how deep it was for a thriller. Yeah, like a 4 or 4.25. The next book that I read in July was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. This is the second book in the Chronicles of Narnia series. It is a children's fantasy book. This one doesn't really give away what happens in the first book, so I can give you a better description of this book. Basically, these 4 kids are visiting, I believe, their uncle for the summer, and they are playing hide and seek, and one of the little girls ends up hiding in a wardrobe, and then she realizes that she can just keep walking straight through the back of the wardrobe, and at the back of the wardrobe is a whole new world, which is Narnia. And this is a story about how basically these 4 kids came to kind of save Narnia from this evil witch who kind of had control over Narnia, and it was like an eternal winter, and so basically it was like the story of them having to defeat this witch and bring springtime and life back to Narnia. I ended up giving this a 3.75. Obviously, this was like super unique and so cute and fun. It's that it was just like a cute and fun and quick little read, and I love this version that I have. I have this box set that has like illustrations in it, which is super fun. So it's like literally reading a kid's book, and I just feel like it's so nostalgic and fun. And yeah, it was really cute. The next book that I read was The Circle by Dave Eggers. This is a sci-fi book. It is about a woman who goes to work for this company called The Circle. And I think The Circle is basically kind of like Google in our world. But basically she is working here and things start to get a little, well, more than a little, very creepy and like invasive. So she's working here and she thinks it's a normal job, but in reality it's kind of like The Circle is almost trying to take control of like everyone in the world. Like they're trying to get people like microchipped, and they're like putting cameras everywhere so that anybody can live stream in like any area of the world, kind of like CCTV but like on a crazier scale. Anybody can set up these cameras. The cameras are not like regulated in any way. They are having politicians be transparent. I think that's what they called it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they called it like being transparent, which is basically like all politicians are having to wear this like necklace camera at all times of the day, and anyone can live stream their necklace camera. Just some crazy wild stuff starts happening in this. This was another book where I was so mad at the main character in this book. Like, oh my god, she was so irritating. Just being in her mind and just like, she's so oblivious. Like all of this crazy, scary stuff is happening at this company, and she's basically just being brainwashed to believe that this is all okay. And she is just like completely not seeing the fact that this is like ruining the world. So yeah, this was like really interesting. It was a really interesting concept. One of the quotes on the back or the front just says prophetic, and that's like so accurate to me. Like as I was reading this, I was just like, I wonder if this could like actually happen. I ended up giving this a 3.5. I really enjoyed it and I was interested the whole entire time, but I will say that it was a little bit repetitive and it was really long actually. These are like these pages that are like Bible thickness, you know what I mean? And there's 490 pages in this, so almost a 500-page book. And a lot of it I just felt was very repetitive. It was thrilling, but just repetitive, I guess. And there is a sequel to it, I believe, and I honestly don't think I'm gonna pick it up. Not because I wasn't interested, but I think it's just because it was like so repetitive that like, I don't know. I'm just not really interested in picking up the second one, I guess. And the last book that I read in July, you guys, was Wayward by Amelia Hart. Look at this cover. I'm obsessed. This is a contemporary and historical fiction because you have 3 point of views from 3 women in this line of Waywards. That's their last name. They all are like wayward women. So one perspective is in the 1600s, one perspective is in the 1940s, I think, or the 1960s. And one perspective is in 2019. From the 1600s, you're getting the perspective of one of like the first wayward women, is it? But her name's Alpha and she is tried for being a witch. So you're going through her story with that, and then you have Violet in the 1940s, I think it's the 1940s. And she is growing up on an estate with her father and her brother, and her mother died when she was young, so she doesn't really have any memories or anything from her mother. So it's her story growing up with her father and her brother, but also feeling like she doesn't really fit in normal society. And then in 2019, you have a woman who escaped an abusive relationship and actually ends up going to her Aunt Violet from the 1940s, going to live at her cottage because it was left to her and her abuser does not know that it was left to her, so he can't find her there. I ended up giving this book a 4.5 stars. I absolutely adored this book, you guys. I will say that the Goodreads reviews on this book are very like scattered. I'm pretty sure it has a 4 stars on Goodreads, but when I was looking through all of the comments, there was a lot of people that were not impressed, which kind of makes me sad because I really feel like this story was so powerful. It just really shows like the connection between family members, especially women in families through generations, and how similar we can all be in the same family line and how we can actually find strength in our ancestors, which is really cool to me. There was like a lot about like nature in this, which I really loved a lot too. I just keep stopping to look at this cover because I put this face out on my bookshelf because I'm obsessed with this cover, you guys. It's so pretty. Yeah. I don't even know what else to say. I loved this story. I was so attached to all 3 of the characters and I cried. Yep. So that was all of the books that I read in July, you guys. I can't believe I actually read this many books in 1 month. I don't know what I was on this month. Honestly, City of Girls, which was like the first book that I finished in July, it seems like I read that like 2 months ago. July was really long for me. I don't know why. Normally that doesn't happen. Normally like the months are just flying by for me, but July was just like a really long one for me. And I guess it shows because I got through so many books this month. But anyways, guys, my camera is about to die. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, please comment and like and subscribe. And please talk to me in the comments because I love to chat all things books with you guys. And until next time, guys, bye!